Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. Now, we're not specifically talking tigers, but we are talking wildlife. And I want to welcome the head of the Hunters Search and Rescue Team, Captain Valence Rambarat. He joins us via Zoom. We can chat a little bit about wildlife trading in Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to you, Captain Rambarat.
Good morning to you and Kimberly as well, and it's good to be on the Good Morning Now program. It's a
Good morning,
pleasure and a,
Captain.
a good special good morning to your viewership as well.
We appreciate that. Now, generally, Captain, tell us about a little bit about the wildlife that exists in Trinidad and what's commonly traded as far as wildlife is concerned, and well, the legal ones. Let me start with the legal ones.
I lost you for a bit. I just got part of the question, Marcus, Rocus.
Yeah, I was asking about
I don't
wildlife
know where
trading
the audio
existing in Trinidad
problem
and Tobago.
emanates from.
Yeah, you hear me now? You hear me now, Captain?
We seem to have an audio problem.
Ah, okay. You seem to have
I'm
a
now
bit of a
hearing you. I
delay.
heard the R. I heard the R. So let me see if I'm hearing you now.
All right. I'm asking if wildlife trading exists legally in Trinidad and Tobago.
There is within the regulatory framework and the laws of Trinidad and Tobago for persons to import animals, plants, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
they are well defined and they're governed by the Wildlife Conservation Act as well as the customs and exercise laws of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as several of the health regulations. So there exists a legal framework for the importation of plants and animals into Trinidad and Tobago.
All right. And is there also an existing, I don't want to call it a framework, but an existing industry of illegal trading of wildlife animals as well?
Yes, in Trinidad and Tobago, but let's look at the worldwide picture first of all. Why is there wildlife trade? The estimated economic value placed on illegal wildlife trade globally is around 119 billion US dollars, and that was the estimate was in 2020. And so there exists economic trade for wildlife throughout the world, wildlife and wildlife products. And so, as with many countries throughout the world, Trinidad and Tobago, we do have a wildlife trade. Now, the wildlife trade has been in exotic animals, birds, um, and other animals, as well as we've not seen a high demand in Trinidad and Tobago for animal products, but certainly there has been an exchange of wildlife. We see it more as an imported event as opposed to animals from Trinidad and Tobago being exported. We've seen animals coming from the South American mainland, and these are mainly birds, parrots, etc.
Now, Captain Rambarat, with this trade that you mentioned, do we see pros and cons of it actually helping, let's say, our biodiversity or anything like that? Do we have actually pros to us importing those exotic animals? And are there also cons to that practice as well?
Well, certainly the pros would be that some of our animals are similar to those on the South American continent. And whereas we have a depletion of our stock here in Trinidad, and I will make reference to the local pico plat, right? You found recently there was illegal smuggling of the pico plats into Trinidad and Tobago, and barring major diseases and stuff which may come with these animals, it really has allowed our stock to be replenished over time. But really and truly, the cons are the ones that we have to be worried about. The importation of viruses, pests, that is very, very critical to our ecosystem. We don't want to have to import pests and viruses, bacteria, etc., into our environment so that it could destroy our ecosystem. We recently had the worldwide phenomenon of the COVID virus, and that was a zoonotic disease. It jumped from animal to man, and that could occur at any time throughout the world. And introducing a new species of animal into our environment could introduce zoonotic diseases. And we could go through a similar situation as happened with the coronavirus and the COVID 19 disease. That simple issue caused the world 34, 34 trillion US dollars. That was the impact on the on globally, and that started from a zoonotic disease.
Captain, I want to touch just a bit on the Jaguar issue, and I'm touching on it because I know that you would have had to distance yourself almost from another hunting group that went into the Palo Seco forest, and you also would have mentioned to people that they should not go into the forest to search for the alleged jaguar that was allegedly seen in Palo Seco. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. I think first of all, I'm happy with the response of the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, the minister himself, the conservator of forests, Mr. Denny Dipchansing. They've been on the ball with respect to the alleged sightings. The conservator of forests is now on record as saying there were no confirmed sightings, there were no jaguar attacks. However, he did state that as a precaution, there is a unit stationed in Palo Seco, and that he has engaged foreign experts and the Zoological Society of Trinidad and Tobago to help them to continue to determine if there exists a jaguar down in that area. And let me speak to the group. Huh? We had one person leaving our group in December 2022, and he would have fallen out with the majority of members who didn't possess the same value system as the membership determined, and he was asked to leave, and he went on to form his own team. And his approach and our approach were two different approaches. We thought a scientific approach was needed to get in there and determine whether there were signs of a jaguar. His approach was to call on hunters to go and hunt down a jaguar and to endanger their lives. And we know that that was not consistent with the laws of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to calling out hunters in the closed season and hunters not having the proper authorization to enter into the state forest. Our approach was to support the Ministry of Agriculture, the Forestry Division, in their efforts to determine, and in cases like this, there you go on a data collection exercise, and I'm happy to report that the Forestry Division is continuing in this trend. They've brought in new data collection techniques to the equation. We suggested some of the techniques to them, and then they are competent. They know how to do their work. It's no challenge for the Forestry Division and the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands and Fisheries to accomplish what is before them.
So, Captain, just out of curiosity, has that data collection borne any fruit so far? Do we have any proof that says, yes, we have a jaguar, no, we don't have a jaguar in the Palo Seco forest?
No, there were some paw prints that were not familiar to us as hunters on the team, and I think when we did send it to the zoological staff, they also had some problems determining the type of paw print, and it would have been on that basis that they would have sent it for further studies. I myself, looking, I mean, I would have come across some of the prints myself. I wasn't convinced that it was the paw of a jaguar, but I wasn't able to determine what animal had that print.
So, Captain, what I'm hearing you saying here is that we're not sure if it's a jaguar, but there's something out there.
Well, there's something to look at, and I think we have to wait for the the collection exercise is finished and the data analysis to be completed, and Forestry Division and the Ministry of Agriculture will report to the population. But I firmly believe that because we were differing on in terms of identifying the paw print, I think that it made sense to send it off for expert opinion.
Understood. And speaking of expert opinion, what does one do, a lay citizen like myself, if I were to encounter any sort of wild animal? What's the approach that you suggest we take?
Well, the thing is that wild animals do come around communities from time to time, and what you have to do is you have to leave it alone, because animals, there's a pet industry, and people become close emotionally attached to pets. Pets become attached to human beings because human beings are a new food source for the animals. So we suggest that you leave it alone. You do not attempt to touch it or to reach out to it, to pet it, and that you do not feed it at all. If you do not feed it, it may go away. And if you find that the animal is still around and it's not supposed to be there, please call the zoo. Their lines are the zoo, and they will respond immediately and take care of the animal. They have been doing a lot of work, by the way, with respect to caimans in the environment, the snakes in our environment, and other animals that come close to communities and houses.
Yeah. And Captain, final question for me. Any words of advice for the owners of these wildlife, especially the ones who may escape?
Well, yeah, the wildlife, you don't want to um, it harms Trinidad and Tobago biodiversity, and it puts the biodiversity into a crisis. Let me give 4 examples quickly. You have the giant African snail ravaging gardens throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and affecting agriculture and impacting on the economic output of agriculture. There's a cost to that. Secondly, you have the capybara in Trinidad and Tobago that was introduced and is wreaking havoc in the Caroni areas and the south and north Aranguez area, as well as is now expanding into the Freeport Arena area. So it's expanding throughout the country. The third invasive species we've had is the tufted capuchin monkey. That's the one we come across when we go by the Bamboo Cathedral. That is not native to Trinidad and Tobago. And what it's doing is that it is impacting on our smaller white-faced capuchin monkey. And monkeys are territorial. And well, what may eventually happen is that it may force the white-faced capuchin eastward on the northern range as these troops expand from the west to the east on the northern range. And so our white-faced capuchin is a more docile, is a smaller animal, and it could be in danger. And there is a fourth one. You have the lionfish in around in our marine environment that was brought in by the aquarium trade from South Indonesia, and that is impacting on our very fragile coral reefs in Tobago. And these are some of the harmful effects of bringing in species that do not belong to Trinidad and Tobago, and they're having an impact on our environment. And my advice to the owners is simply not to pursue importation and bringing in exotic species that would become invasive and harmful to our biodiversity. It creates a crisis.
And I think that's where we're going to end it for now. Captain Rambarat, let me thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I hope that people heed the call and listen to your words of advice so that we can protect our beautiful island of TNT. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It was a pleasure.
And that was Captain Valance Rambarat of the Hunters Search and Rescue Team, just giving us an update on these invasive animals and the sort of impacts it can have on our biodiversity. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.